Hi. In this lesson, let's validate our form. At the moment, our form is set up so that we can basically enter empty values here and submit them, and it will be submitted. We're not satisfied with this. We want all inputs to be filled when creating the form. I also propose adding the following condition. Let's make sure our text is at least 100 characters long so it's meaningful, and the nickname, since we use it in the URL, should only contain letters, numbers, and hyphens. Let's add such validation. Formik will naturally help us with this. Formik has a property called validate. You can pass some function into it. To not waste time typing now, I will just paste a prepared version and explain it. 1. How does it work? Look, when we submit the form, or when we forcibly trigger validation, our form is validated according to this function. It receives, with the same type specified in our initial values. By the way, here in Formik, you can also specify the type of our data structure. But this time everything is fine with us again because we have strings here, and we really need them to be strings. All right? The validate function is called, and it contains the values. Then we create an object called errors. And if all our data is valid, we return this errors as an empty object. What does an empty object mean? It means there are no errors. If suddenly an error is found, for example, the first check, if the name field has a negative value from a logical perspective, that is false. It can occur when our string is empty. In this case, there are no other options. So, if the string is empty in values, name here, then in the errors, object in the name field, the string name is required will be placed, and we return the object with such an error. At the same time, see, at this stage the check didn't stop. We added the name field with this string to the object and proceeded to check further. Let's delve into this later. Let's set some console logs now and see how it looks. Alright, so I'm saving, and here I'm displaying our Formik to see what it has inside. Okay, we call it check it. We have errors and it's currently empty. We have values and it's currently empty. Now we start entering the name field, a 1. See what happened here. The thing is, I tricked it from the very start, and Formik indeed validates the form at every stage after any initial change. And that's why it already knows about all the errors. Let's see what's in errors. There's no error for name, but there are for other things. It says that description is required, nick is required, and text is required. Here. So, it knows all the errors. We just need to display them now. Let's display them, and then we'll come back to dissecting this validation function. Okay? So, let's start by adding the error display, let's say, at the top level. Yes, so that when something in our form is invalid, we'll see a message before the button. Some fields are invalid. And let this text be read. How to understand that we have some errors in the text. Not in the text, but in the form. This can be understood based on Formik's isValid property. Here, if it's true, the form is valid. If false, it's invalid, and this message should be displayed. Let's take a look. Some of our messages are invalid, and we filled everything here. Okay, what errors are left? Let's check. It seems everything is specified correctly. Right. Our text should have much more characters. Oops, there we go. And now everything is valid. Great. But it's not very convenient. We want, when there's an error, to see immediately above the field that the error refers to this field. Let's do it. For this, we need to change our input and text area components. How to get an error. If we obtain the value like this, then we get the error in a very similar way. Formik errors. Name. The only problem is that it currently assumes it can be anything. This is because the form can actually be nested. It's not certain that there's such a flat object. Given that it's not certain there's such a flat object, we need to explicitly state what's there, how the error will appear, and what type it will be. Yes, and in our case, it's always just a string, or undefined. We just know that, and that's why we write it like this now. At this point, it's true for us. Good. So, let's say we have an error, and if there's something in the error that's not undefined, then here, yes, let's output a div with the error text in red, if there's an error, and let's add the same to the text area. Adding to the text area. Pilot knows everything. And let's go check. For instance, we submitted the form. The form was not submitted, and it validated everything immediately. So, entered name is required, entered nick is required, entered description. Well, and here is a long text. Typed, typed, and typed, until 100 singles were entered, and it was accepted. Great. And now we're allowed to submit the form. You see, until we had valid values here, the form was not submitted. Yes, we don't have this submitted message, and so it gets sent. Good. That means the validation works. But let's take a slightly closer look at the validation function itself. What do we have here? Yes, just a check for the presence of anything in name, then a check for the presence of anything in nickname. And if the nickname exists, then we check it using a regular expression. Regular expressions are a whole world. I'll attach a link to some materials on this topic. It's a convenient thing. GPT Chat can write it for you at the same time. But I generally recommend learning to use regular expressions because they frequently appear. Even when you search files or want to replace something, writing regex is very convenient. They seem scary until you figure them out. And it's actually not that difficult. You just need to devote a little time to it. What specifically is happening here? I'm checking the username to ensure that it contains absolutely all characters. Absolutely all characters are lowercase letters from A to Z, or digits from 0 to 9, or a hyphen. That's it. So just highlight it so that it'll be easier for you to get into regex in the future. This means that the string starts with this. This means it ends with this. The dollar itself means the end of the string. The caret itself means the start of the string. A plus means one or more elements. This indicates what the elements can be. A hyphen between two values is a range. If a hyphen is just there, it means the hyphen itself, not a range. No problem. You'll figure it out over time. Good. I hope some of you are already using this. You're doing great. Good. All right, here we've done a check with a regular expression. Again, if it fails, we'll indicate what format the username should be in. The description check is simple, just confirming its presence. And the text has a check for its presence, as well as that it's not shorter than 100 characters. Such a check. At the same time, you probably noticed that this is somewhat cumbersome. If we write this for each form, it will be inconvenient. But we already used Zod somewhere in the project, which is designed to validate and type data. Therefore, it's logical to apply it to Formik, which we will do in one of the upcoming lessons. But for now, I just wanted to show you how this validate function works and how it forms these errors. And so, when we replace it with Formik, you'll feel how pleasant it is to just write code with it, and how little needs to be written and how much it gives back. Okay? So, in my opinion, we figured out validations, and we can move on. Thank you very much. See you soon.